Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Building for Resilience and How to Come Out of the Manufacturing Crisis on Top. My name is Stephanie Kidder. I'm the CMO at Cosmo Tech, and I'll be your moderator today. It's been a strange couple of months for everyone, and we've all been impacted in different ways, both on a personal and a professional level. And we hope that you're all doing well and getting through everything fine. It's a real pleasure to see so many of you participating today. Just a few organizational comments before we get started. All participants are in listen-only mode, but there will be a Q&A section at the end. So feel free to put your questions or comments in the question section of your control panel. We will make sure to answer any questions that we have at the end of the presentation. The session will be recorded, so you'll receive a link tomorrow. Feel free to share that, of course, with your colleagues. Or to watch it another time. So just to quickly go over the agenda. So after the introduction, Sergio Coz, an industry veteran of many years in the automotive industry, will speak about the current crisis and how it has impacted automotive manufacturers. Then we have Jérôme Fournier from Nexans, who will share how his company has reacted during this pandemic crisis. Finally, we have Michel Morvan, who's the president and founder at Cosmo Tech. He will explain how simulation can help manufacturers prepare for uncertainty and disruption in complex organizations. And finally, as I said, there will be a Q&A at the end. We'd love to make this more interactive, and to hear from you. So in addition to the Q&A session, we will be running a few quick audience polls during the webinar. So before we get started, let me hand it off to our speakers to present themselves. Serge, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm 60. I spent 25 years in the automotive industry in Renault-Nissan Alliance in marketing, supply chain strategy, and digital transformation positions. And I left Renault 1 year ago to create a company and to support other organizations in their transformation, especially digital transformation. Jérôme?
My turn. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm a vice president of Nexans in charge of innovation and services. I've got an engineer background in the field of material science. I spent 25 years in the field of innovation, 15 for Nexans and 8 years for Michelin tires.
Thanks, Michel.
Hello. Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Michel Morvan. I'm the co-founder and executive chairman of Cosmo Tech, which means that now I'm currently running a startup company, but I didn't do that all my life. Previously, I used to be, in a previous life, I used to be an academic. I was a professor of computer science and maths. I was leading a research institute on complex systems. And that's where I developed the technology that is now the base, the main asset of Cosmo Tech. And of course, we are going to discuss how we can use this technology and these digital twins to help industries solve their more important problem of the day.
Great, thanks everyone. So let's get started. So as you can see this stat here, we're facing a widespread and unprecedented crisis with the COVID-19 pandemic. And whether large or small, companies globally are impacted in some way or another. Manufacturers in particular, supply chain experts estimate that to fully recover will take time, which is why both immediate and proactive action is needed, not only to minimize damage, but also to come out of the crisis stronger. Which leads us to our first poll question. We will launch here. How long do you think the disruption is going to take to come back to normal? So so it looks like it's not going to be a quick solution. Less than 6 months is only 3%, 24% for 6 to 12 months, 29% 12 to 18 months, and 44% of you think that it's going to take longer than 18 months to come back to normal. Go ahead, Serge.
Thank you. Okay, just a quick word about DigitforHuman that I created a few months ago. I mean, the idea is that digital transformation has a strong impact on overall managerial and the way the companies are working. And conversely, if you want to transform your organization, it's better to use completely the digital lever. This is the aim of DigitforHuman is to support companies that want to go that way, transform their organizations. And as a second part of the activity, I'm working with a number of young digital companies, and I'm working with Cosmo Tech to help them enter the overall more traditional industrial sectors. Now, coming to our topic, I hope I will manage it. Yeah, it's a unique crisis. I won't read the slide. I just want to point out a few things. First, this is a natural disaster-like supply crisis in the sense that it's not a cost crisis like the oil shocks could be, or some crisis that we add on material prices. This is really an off-on crisis, and the only type of crisis that we had for that sort were natural disasters. I mean, be it Fukushima, be it Thailand floods. The difference is that nowadays it's global. It's everywhere and all kind of supply. The second point is the uncertainty on the demand. I will come back to it. Is far higher than whatever we've seen in terms of demand crisis in the past few years. Even if it's very momentary, we have markets that are down 90–95%, which is never seen since probably the World War. The last point, which is not small, is that it's not only a supply and demand crisis, it's a systemic crisis. All the functions are impacted in the car manufacturer, and especially the R&D activity is impacted. If I go to the demand, typically the car market, the car demand is linked with two indicators, which is GDP, and for the private demand is the available income for the household. As you probably know, I mean, the GDP forecast, both short-term and mid-term, is varying widely just now. I mean, I had a look. I mean, WTO is announcing a trade down between 20 and 40% in 2020, and might be up to minus 30% in 2021. So this is huge. GDP forecast is varying as well. And we don't know what will be the way we will get out of the crisis, be it V-shaped, U-shaped, W-shaped, L-shaped. I mean, you can read a lot about that. So this is the first thing. The global level will be very uncertain. The product mix could be also uncertain because there could be re-arbitration by households in terms of what do they want to buy. Do they want to buy value for money and a way to move from point A to point B? Obviously, companies will arbitrate their expenses and probably against renewing faster their fleets. There is a big question mark on the CO2. Unfortunately, there is a temptation by some markets, some companies, to push for a relaxation of CO2 regulation, and that could be also a huge impact in terms of mix, not necessarily in terms of overall level. On the other hand, we see a significant rise in electric vehicles. So a big question mark once again here. And finally, there was a scenario that was common to the whole industries, that mobility was going towards car sharing, on-demand mobility, and that could be once again a question mark, very uncertain in terms of how people will be able to trust taking a car together, using a car that is being used by somebody else in the same day. And obviously, driverless is not yet a short-term solution. So this is conclusion: is demand is at a level of uncertainty that is extremely high. In terms of supply, there are four major impacts. The first one is the lockdown exit will be staggered country by country. There might be different tactics. We might come back to a lockdown situation if the epidemic is not mastered. So the on-off situation that I described at the beginning might last for a long time. The second one is obviously that, as I said, I mean, the supply crisis is not localized and it's not restricted to one type of components. So it's very completely generalized in terms of geography, in terms of type of components. The third one is the impact on logistics of that crisis in terms of regulations, in terms of air freight, especially. I mean, the air freight is used quite significantly in the car industry to accelerate delivery of components when there is a shortage on components to avoid stopping the production. And this is obviously something that will not be easy to get with the current situation. And we don't know what will be the future of the air companies altogether. And finally, a big point about employee protection. Employee protection is not only distanciation rules within the plants, it's also making sure that protection equipment is available for all the employees at the right time. And this is for the car manufacturer, but this is not, the problem is not only for the car manufacturer, it's for the whole supply chain. Should be true also for the suppliers, should be true also for the distribution network. And this is a huge logistics and responsibility problem that car manufacturer can face. Finally, it's actually, I mean, as I say, I mean, it's a systemic crisis, and the reference framework that everybody was using might be changed. And I'm just pointing here, I mean, three aspects and three truths that were considered as obvious by everybody that might not be as obvious in the future. The first one is lean. Lean is obviously better from an economic point of view, from a financial point of view. The problem with lean is that it's not robust. It can be extremely easily disrupted by the crisis that we're currently living through. The second one is globalization of supply. Obviously, globalization of supply is based on, I would say, an open enough market and open enough flows between different countries. I mean, this is still a question mark. Obviously, from a financial point of view, it was a good thing for the car industry, and the car industry is a low margin industry. But there will be arbitration between risk and cost as far as localization of supply is concerned. And finally, as I said, I mean, mobility in terms of future is a big question mark. There was a clear way that was seen by all the actors in terms of sharing, in terms of evolution of the market, change of the cars that we were using, connected cars, I mean, and in the future, self-driverless cars. This is a big question mark because this is based on sharing and this is based on trust, and trust is probably a question mark as well. Thank you so much, and I will be happy to answer your question at the end.
Okay, great. Thanks, Serge. That was really interesting. That brings us to our second poll question. So everyone get ready. We will launch the question. Oh, okay, so it's pretty overwhelmingly, so 53% of respondents not prepared at all. 42% were somewhat prepared, and 6% were completely prepared. I would be very interesting to hear from some of those cases and how they prepared about that, to be completely prepared for such a crisis, an unexpected event, but that's very interesting. So, Jérôme, how about if you tell us, I know that Nexans, you had quite a quick plan in place. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've done at Nexans.
Sure. Thank you, Stephanie. Nexans is a global cable solution provider. So the sales last year was 6.7 billion euro with an EBITDA for 113 million euro. We have 70 plants in 34 countries all around the world. And there is 26,000 employees in the group. So we, as a Nexans, are providing all type of cable system for 4 main markets: the buildings and territories, smart buildings, smart cities, smart grid. The high voltage project, which is really linked with the energy transition those days and the renewable energy, connecting offshore wind to countries. Obviously, telecom and data cable, and any type of cable harnesses or cable system for industry, including automotive. So that's transportation, robotic stock, automation, renewable energy, meaning a cable within the turbine. And Nexans is Nexans has a long history. It started in 1897 as La Société Française des Câbles Électriques, moved to Compagnie Générale de Cable, then Alcatel in 1980. And it's a listed independent company since 2000. But I think Nexans has quite a long history in transformation. Some of them were nice. Some of them, especially during the last 10 years, were not that easy. We did have internal crises. We worked on a market where it was not so easy to move. Maybe you can help me to just get the other slide, because yeah. So I wanted to point out, in terms of transformation, 4 main levers, which are the sense of urgency, probably the most powerful one, the culture in transforming ourselves. The vision is very important, where we want to go or where we need to go. And I also think that the power of routines and habits is very important. And we'll come back through those levers. I wanted to point out also, within the crisis steps, the 4 major steps. First one is react and resolve. And that's where the sense of urgency is extremely important or powerful, because you need to do something. And then comes the resilience and the return and the transformation itself. What's going to be the new future? And my conviction about complexity, because it's all about taking decision or making action based on our understanding of the complexity, is that we need a model. Whatever is a very simple model, like we do at this time, or it's a more complex or sophisticated digital model, but it is very important to get one. So let's move into the step 1 of the crisis: react and resolve. Nexans, the whole company, has been in crisis mode since January, in China and in the rest of the world in early March. We did set up the different workforce for, first, the protection of employees and the healthy reaction, to monitor operation and monitor the supply chain. We had a workforce on the customer engagement to synchronize our activity with the customer needs or business continuity. And then financial liquidity stress test, cash conversion transformation, which is a key point, and some modelization on financial recovery, whatever would be the scenarios. And in the first stage of the crisis, in terms of safety health, we are very proud that we succeed to have our operation running with more than 50 or 100 action per plants to protect the team. Our Chinese colleagues have been very helpful. They send all around the world more than 1 million of masks and gloves. We gave some of them to the hospital in different countries, and we keep the rest for our own employees. And today there has been only 26, I think today it's 28, there is new one, but employees which have been tested positive, no critical cases, on a total of 26,000 people. The second point in terms of reaction was to, as we do not know, was the suspension of financial guidance. We also withdraw the dividend of the company. The shareholder meeting was yesterday afternoon. We propose a premium prime for the workers being in the plant. During the crisis, there has been a lot of discussion about remote work, about people working in the office, not that much about people on the business continuity in the plants. And we really wanted to thank our employees, and we're very proud on the way they manage it on the daily life. And the management team has cut the pay for social cohesion. So 85% of the units have been running, not at 100%, but we really synchronize our business continuity with the needs of the customer. Most of the time, it was made by phone call, daily phone call to the key accounts to know how they wanted to change their forecast in terms of ordering. The second stage of the crisis is maybe not that easy. It's the return, reimagine, and reform. And as I mentioned, the lever of necessity help us a lot for the first stage, as well as the habit and the routine. For the second one, because we, Nexans, have launched a transformation plan last year, our reform, our transformation is just in the same business model. So we are completing a profound company transformation in terms of finance, in terms of industrial excellence, and in terms of innovation, focusing on priorities, reducing complexity, and we just stick during the crisis on this model. We even want to accelerate it. So we are forecasting a price erosion, which is amplified by the COVID-19, especially in the commodity market like buildings. So we know that's going to happen. It did happen in the crisis in 2010 and 2010. So we want to face that by transforming our business model and from transaction to offers, from pure supply and price transaction to focusing on the customer needs and to having a better offer, try to solve the issue of our key customer, not only in terms of product, but in terms of capex reduction, working capital, meaning we are prepared to a new offer with some services in terms of logistics, with some services in terms of learnings, in terms of new type of packagings, in terms of system to make our customers save some time, save some capex, reduce their working capital, and get the product they need. So it's a move up in the value chain through smart cable service and solution, and we might come back on some example that we developed with Cosmo Tech. Basically, the fact that we did have this model make this second stage, I will not say easier, but we know where we go. So we want to, a crisis is always a time for a profound change. And we want to accelerate our transformation. I wanted to point out that in my opinion, there is, in terms of complexity management, there is at this time two alternatives which are at each side of the board. One side is to reduce complexity, and that's one of the common points of our business, meaning business model, meaning we want to reduce our product references. We want to focus on our key customer. We really want to address the complexity of our own organization. On the other side of the board, there is the understanding of the complexity through a digital model and simulation, and Michel will discuss about that. That's something we can propose to some of our customers, like utilities, And that's something we would dream of on our own financial stress test and business model. But we don't have that right now. We might come to it later. And to conclude, I wanted to share some more personal thoughts of the crisis. When Wuhan city in China has been locked down in January, I don't know what was your reaction, but I remember clearly my reaction. I've been so surprised. I thought that it would not come in Europe. That could be only one decision to lock down a 5 million people city would be only one decision from Chinese government. I was very surprised. And then when it came to France in March, we did it. And we did it, I will not say easily, but it did happen. And it made me realize that what Pascal said on the established order, that is good not because it's the right order, but because it's established. And I'm even more surprised today when people are worried about how we get out the lockdown, meaning that we've got the habit of this new order being locked down, and we might be worried about the new order, which make me think that we could transform ourselves as a company or as person much more easier than we thought. The second point is this Seneca question on time. During the crisis, the lockdown, what did we do with the time? Some of us have been very, very busy, working 14 hours a day to solve the crisis. Some other just have a long period of time. And that's a question I think we should wonder as a company or as a person, what did we do with the time, and how did we consider that this time was very precious? I just can recommend to read again the letter to Lucilius from Seneca. It's only half page, but I think it's a great reading if we wonder our relation to the time. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jerome. Really great ending there. Very interesting to have that point of view. It sounds like Nexans, and often with crisis, it can be an opportunity to move forward and change and actually move on to things that are better. So I think that's great. So now we are on to our third poll in this webinar, which you should see it on your screen. In what areas will you invest or have you invested in the response to this pandemic? So we have, of course, technology. So quite a lot of investment to be planned in technology, 52%. Imagine that includes different data technologies, analytics, simulation, employees, whether that's maybe investing in training or hiring different people, different skill sets, protection of employees, process improvements, 48%, 18% new partners and suppliers. I have seen some examples of companies that with the cross-border and issues that they're having, looking for partners and suppliers who were closer to home or more flexible, and then 15% of others. So I think that's really great, interesting. If we get some of the detail in the chats, we'll definitely share that with you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And well, it was great to have the two presentations, one from Serge and one from Jerome, who were really enlightening. And what I kept, I mean, there were a lot of great amount of information, but it was very interesting that the points that came were, well, the crisis, what happened is systemic. You cannot just look at it as a crisis of demand or this or that. It's everything happening at the same time, almost everywhere at the same time. And this systemic aspect is really, really important. And that was pointed out by Serge. Jerome mentioned the fact that you need, if you want, when you face this, you need models. You cannot just look at it and wait to make the best decision. You need to structure the way you think of it, and you will need to simulate this. And these two these two aspects, and of course what is behind, and it has been said also, is that it's very complex because it's systemic, because I mean everything happens at the same time. It's very complex, and you have to manage this complexity. So what I'm gonna share with you today is what we do at Cosmo Tech to help building for resilience with enterprise digital twins and simulations. That's what I'm going to share with you. I mean, Cosmo Tech is a software vendor, and we are doing a software solution we call enterprise digital twins, and I will come back to what it means. And we use these for the industry to simulate and optimize operational efficiency. And in this context of this crisis, of this need of managing complexity, managing systemic situation, it's extremely important. Couple of words. Oh, you're going ahead with the slides, Stephanie, or okay? I'm fine. I can do it. So, couple of words about Cosmo Tech. Company has been created in 2010, so we are 10 years old. We have had a couple of awards, and we have very good recognition from the market. We are currently 100 employees based in Lyon, and the very important thing for us, and that we are very proud of, is, I mentioned the fact that we are providing software solution, but the software solution we provide for the industry, they are in production. So they're implemented and used at scale by very big players. So we are not just doing, proof of concepts or small solutions. We are doing things that really work at a real size. And on some of them, we have in our digital twins, millions of equipments related one with the other. And we are able to run simulations about these equipments on long-term period or short-term period, depending on what we want. So we have great customers like Renault, Airbus, Alstom, EDF, RTE, and of course others, but our solutions are implemented at scale. So this number, 67% of manufacturers indicate that manufacturing operations are complex. And by the way, we have seen in the poll, in the answer of one of the questions, that in this context of very complex operation, your organization were not completely prepared. So that's what we are facing today. I mean, the situation is very, very complex. The operations are complex, and what happens if there is no this preparation? And the real need that we can see from and we can take from this experience is that there is a big need of real digitalization of the supply chain, because it's very often that when you talk to industrials and people managing manufacturing operation, you ask the knowledge about their rank 1 subcontractor and rank 2 and rank 3, and they don't have a big understanding and knowledge about this rank 1, rank 2, and rank 3 subcontractors. And when the situation like the one we are facing arise, it's a big problem, because you now have to work in an environment that is completely new. And so how can you restart quickly if you don't have the visibility on all available resources? And how can you be sure that you restart at the good, the right time and the right place? And you really need to have this understanding. And what we provide is what we call dynamic simulation. And dynamic simulation based on the digital twin allows to run simulation, to test different options, to optimize, to find the best way, not based on a guess or not based just on data from the past, but based on the actual situation, because as Jerome said, you have access to a model of the system, and then you're able to have visibility on what will be the impact of your decisions. Of course, it's never perfect. It's not even the reality, but it's a trend. You can see what will be the impact, and it's extremely important to make decisions and figure out what will be the next step. So if you look at what happened with this, disruption, the coronavirus, why is it so different than what happened before? It's very different because it's completely new. It doesn't follow a pattern. If you say, oh, okay, no problem, I face this, but I want to make the best decision, so I will use fantastic big data solution, look at the data from the past and know what will be the future. Well, it doesn't work because this never happened in the past. And by the way, this is something that is very often that when you have to make decisions on complex systems and complex situations, you cannot rely on data from the past, because what you're interested in or is what is new, what never happened in the past. How can I manage that? And what we have learned with this coronavirus is that this will be the world we are going to live in now. It's showing us that we cannot only rely on data from the past. We can use them, but it's not enough. It's an information, but it's not enough. So the very important thing, and that's what we try to provide with our models and modeling tools and simulation, is the ability to make forecasts, to optimize, to make decisions, having visibility in the future, but not only basing ourselves on data from the past. So if you want to manage disruption, and I was talking about resiliency, if you want to do that under uncertainty, a great approach to do that is to use this dynamic simulation. So for that, as it was mentioned by Jérôme, you need to do models. So classically, in every company we work with, when we arrive and try to help them with our solutions, and we ask, how did you do? And this is not 100% true, and I apologize for my customers for which it was not true. But very often, a lot of things are in a model that is in an Excel spreadsheet, which is great. But you can imagine that in a situation like the one we are facing, and also in a lot of situations, this is not enough. What if the behavior of the system is not linear? What if there are too many parameters? What if there are very big, retroaction, things impacting here and there? It cannot work. So what we do at Cosmo Tech, we create what we call executable models. So we create models of very complex systems. So we are adapted for the situation described by Serge, which is systemic crisis. A lot of different things appear and are impacted. Very heterogeneous things are impacted, and everything is impacting every other thing. So the models we create are designed for that. That's where we are very good. We are not the best in the world for doing, I don't know, a physical model, 3D model of an engine. If you want that, don't come to Cosmo Tech. However, if you want to have a very complex situation, very heterogeneous, different time scale and space, this is what we do. And these models, we are able to run them. We are able to simulate them. And we can put stochastic, probabilities. We can, and based on that, we can forecast, we can test, we can run what-if scenarios. What if I do this? What if I do that? Or you can also say, what can I do if I want to obtain this result? What can I do if, knowing that this supplier and this supplier is not responding, and that I have less demand here but more demand here, what is the best way for me to restart? That's exactly the kind of things that these solutions can do. And the solutions can be used at long scale. How can I rebuild my, let's say, production system, but also at short term? How can I operate today operations using this visibility in the future that I can have from the simulation? So the idea is really simulate to understand, and understand to decide, and you can do that with enterprise digital twin. So the idea is really how to make decisions under uncertainty. So this is the great thing you can do, because you can test, simulate a decision before having to implement them. So you can anticipate the impact. So you can use the solution to create models of the current business and see which part of the system can be altered conforming to given constraints. So you can explore what if scenarios. You can do how to optimization test, how you can go in a situation. And if we go to the next slide, you can see that with this tool, it's very important for us. We are able to provide solutions for trying to build for resilience, even if you're in a situation that is completely new. Well, you can use this kind of tools to do uncertainty analysis. Let me give you an example. You assume that one of your supplier is going to, the delivery time of this supplier is at risk. Usually it's 5 days. Tomorrow it will be 8 days. So what is going to be the impact on your whole production chain? Is it going to be okay, or is it really at a bottleneck and then we'll have a very, very big impact? Well, you put that in your digital twin, you put this information, you run a simulation, and you look at the impact. So that's the first thing that you can do to manage uncertainty. So then there is sensitivity analysis. Rather than saying, okay, I'm scared that this supplier will have a problem or a delay, you can say, okay, look at all my suppliers, which, where is there the weakest point in my chain? Which one, would be would put me really at risk if it was not able to provide what I need in the good time. And so you could do this sensitivity analysis, going to check all the different possibilities and find the weakest link, and then make the good decision to secure this. And at the end of the day, you can do robustness analysis, which is, okay, there is uncertainty of demand. I don't know what is going to happen in the next, let's say, months or weeks or days. I don't know. So how can I organize my system, have exactly the best possible stocks so that it doesn't cost too much, but I can be robust to the variability in the demand. So this is the way that you can use the solution. You can run a lot of simulation, hundreds of thousands simulation in an optimization algorithm to find the best tuning of your system, even if it's very complex, even if you have a lot of products, to find the best solution. So that's where I will stop and give the stage to Stephanie again.
Okay, great, thanks. So now we're at our Q&A, Q&A portion of the presentation. So the first question is, does it make sense to plan for uncertainty as there are a lot of unknowns and therefore can't predict what will happen?
Well, maybe I can say a word about it, but yes, of course. And it's in particular in this situation that is extremely important to try to predict when there is uncertainty. What you can do is look at the different aspects, test the different situation, and have a look of what the impact of this uncertainty will be on your business, will be on your decisions. And yes, the answer is really yes. If there is uncertainty, it's exactly the good moment to look and to find and to try to predict. And what is very important is, if you want to do that, of course you need other tools than just looking at the past, because the past, well, these things didn't happen. So that's why you need tools like models and simulation that we mentioned. They are made for that and very useful in this situation.
Okay, great.
If I may add one thing, is that what is absolutely clear, I fully agree. You need to plan, but you need to forget about doing a plan like you're doing a budget with only one scenario. With that level of uncertainty, you need to be able to manage scenario. You need to be able to manage alternatives, and not to stick to one only trajectory, because your trajectory can be completely out the mark. Mm-hmm. This is why scenarios are really key.
Okay, great. I have another question here. How can you rebuild risk management after this crisis?
Well,
you want to take that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think Michel will carry on my answer. But what surprised me is that the major risk around the world has been published by the CEA in 2014, and you can buy the book in 2017, and they said there were 3 major risks: pandemic, cyber attack, and energy outage within a country or a continent. And meaning that it was just a question of time in terms of pandemic. But it's having the risk is not the same thing than being prepared for such a risk.
Okay.
Yeah, I can add one word. If you want to manage this risk, what is very important is to accept that you don't know what will happen. You don't know if the next problem will be, I don't know, a revolution in some country where you have a lot of suppliers, another virus coming from the Russian permafrost, Siberian permafrost, releasing some, viruses or whatever. But you don't know what's going to happen. However, you know that something that happened can touch you at some places. It can do some things to you. So if you look at the kind of things that can hurt you, you can make assumptions that, okay, this country will be down. You don't know why, but you can make test scenarios, as Serge said, and manage your risk by testing as many scenarios as you can and having as much visibility as possible. Even if you don't know, you're uncertain about the risk itself, but you look at the impact of the risk on you, and this is limited. And using this limited impact, you can test a lot of different scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Great. So here's a question. I think Serge, you referred earlier to something this, so it's probably related to that. How do you find the balance between cost cutting, being lean, and investing in order to be more agile and prepared for future disruption?
It's a tough question, obviously. I mean, especially for sectors that will be in financial dire straits in the next few months. Obviously, you cannot just say that. I mean, you forget about what happened and you don't invest, and you keep going like you were doing before. Now, at the same time, I mean, the capacity there for investment by some of the sectors, I mean, most of the sectors actually, will be quite limited. So the key for, I would tend to say all companies will be twofold. First, I mean, try to invest on tools, models, systems that will allow you to have very fast return on investment. Not necessarily huge, but at least very fast, so that you can absorb the investment within a few months span. And I know, I mean, what Cosmo Tech is developing is part of that kind of solution. The second one is obviously invest in people, because this is invest in people, invest in process. This doesn't cost any money, and it's definitely more resilient and more robust than simply cutting costs and cutting incomes.
Mm-hmm. Right. Interesting. So there's the simulation. It seems there's a lot of possibilities, but do you? Is there an example of an implementation of a complex thing? I think Jerome, you referenced earlier that you might have some examples there, but if any of you have examples of implementations that have been done.
Oh yes. For example, we worked with we implemented one of our solutions with Renault, who were at the time having a set of factories producing engines, and had the question with 11 or 12 factories all across Europe, producing 10 different kinds of engines. And the question they had was, I received on December 31st from the sales the demand for every week for every engine, and the question is, how can I optimize the organization, the tuning of my machines in each factory, everything in my system to be able to optimize the response to this demand, knowing that of course it's going to change over time, and how can I be robust with that? So this is one example when it has been done and had great results. And what is great is that now the same solution that has been developed to be able to provide as much to respond to a demand and maximize the production, the same one can be used to start again and adapt the supply chain for reducing demand, but of course with not the same number of employees in the factories and so on and so forth. So this is one example.
Okay. There's another question from the audience. When you run a simulation with thousands of interacting parts and observe an outcome, how can you find the causal relation to this outcome and act on it?
Oh, it's a very good question, and the answer is, and I should have mentioned it, when you do simulation and you forecast, you don't have the outcome, the final outcome, but you have all the steps of the simulation. And with the solution, you can look at all the steps, and then you can go and find exactly what happened, and you can find if there were some bottlenecks somewhere, and that's how you can use it. It's very transparent. It's very different than when you make forecasts based on data from the past, because then in this case it's a black box. But if you forecast based on simulation, it's transparent, and then using the tools, you can look at what happened, and you can find, using tools that I'm not going to describe exactly, at least not exactly what will happen, but what may happen with high probability.
Okay, great. Another one, as risks are becoming more complex and global, what would be the best function organization within a company to monitor and anticipate risks with a holistic approach? Who wants that one?
Maybe I start. For me, it's more a question of training than a question of function. If as a executive committee team or management team within a company, you get trained, or you exercise or train yourself in any scenario, then it's easier when it's really happen. And the training might be with your phone call and your list of stakeholders that you should get connected with, or it should be with your own model and you make it more sophisticated to reply to the risk. But that would be my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, it cannot be concentrated in one function and one organization. It has to be working as a network based on one common model. But the vision of the risk and the vision of the potential impacts, I mean, and the way you can estimate local impact to impact your global organization, that cannot be done centrally. It's not efficient. What is efficient is a network that is understanding the way the model is working and able to use it and able to alert the company. So it's a flat network, a distributed network model in my sense.
Okay. There's another question here. Is there an argument for reducing reliance on global supply chains and shifting production back to domestic markets?
I'll answer, because I mean, this is a pressure that the automotive sector is feeling just now. It's a question of balance. I mean, you cannot completely relocalize in one country or a small group of countries. Simply because from economic point of view, it will not be bearable, and reinvesting in France massively is simply not possible considering the current financial situation. But very obviously, there has to be a systematic risk analysis from the car makers to identify which parts, which components need to be relocalized, not to be dependent, and to manage to be able to be resilient enough. So it's really a question of doing the right risk analysis and find the right balance between relocalized and keep a reasonable financial situation.
Okay, great. Well, it looks like we're coming right up to our time. I don't see an additional question, so maybe just a little closing kind of wrap up for this. In the webinar, you've seen a lot of different thoughts on how manufacturers can find their way forward and come out stronger. It's really about finding that balance between being lean, as you were just saying, Serge, and we were talked about before, but also being prepared to adapt to any changing situations and using simulation eventually to prepare for those and to understand what can happen. It's a combination of going right to the essential and execution, but also the opportunity for digital transformation is something that is very important, and finding that balance between complexity and then resiliency using simulation, but really doing all of these things combined to really build a stronger, more resilient organization. So we thank you, everyone. I mean, we're really right up at the time, so I'm going to head right on to the next slide. And thank you guys for coming. We'll send you a link to the video probably tomorrow morning. Please don't hesitate to reach out, send us any questions if you have any additional ones. We'd love to hear from you. Great. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you very much. Take care.